All right. Welcome, everybody. Just going to give you a couple of minutes. I think everyone getting situated. I think I lost the shared screen. Are you able to see that right now? The shared screen now?
See PowerPoint.
The PowerPoint. Okay, I think it's because of that transcripting. But anyways, that's okay. We'll go ahead and get started. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's employer internship panel. Before we get started, I would like to first acknowledge and thank our partners for this special event. Today's presentation is co-hosted by ALPFA, the Association of Latino Professionals in Finance and Accounting, and in partnership with the College of Engineering and Computer Science. This presentation will be recorded, and an attendance link will be shared for check-in at the start of the presentation. We do ask that you please check in for the event. I know we have some partners and some students who are also required to be here for class or for their organization. So please make sure you do that when I send that. And I am excited to get started. Before we begin, I would like to hand it over to our co-host, ALPFA. So I'm going to pass that over to Irvin Castro. So he may share information about his student organization.
Hello, and thank you, Jack, for that warm introduction. And also I want to shout out quickly the Career Center for allowing us to co-host as ALPFA, the Association of Latino Professionals for America. And let me quickly share my screen for a little snippet of what our organization is about for any newcoming members or that are interested in student organizations in general. So as I mentioned, I'm the current president of ALPFA. My name is Irvin Castro. I'm current junior, major in accounting, minor in computer science. And ALPFA is basically our mission and purpose is to basically push diversity, equity, and inclusion into the business sector and provide equitable and results within our members, providing internship opportunities, work experience, and inclusivity in a diverse initiative focused a student organization called ALPFA for primarily business students and open to any majors and any classifications. And additionally, within our success, we've had a lot of our members actually intern with a few of these companies like such as EY and Rose Enterprise that are current panelists today. And additionally, if you are interested as a student and are not a part of ALPFA, I highly encourage you to look into ALPFA through our V-Link, or you can find us also on our social media platforms where we shout out a lot of our opportunities and experiences within leadership, team building, and management. And additionally, we also are proud to also share a lot of these employer events such as this and partner with the Career Center for a lot of the career development and just personal professional development as a whole for our members. And if I can get a quick shout out to all the ALPFA members that are currently here. If you can, just type in the chat ALPFA. And if you're also a part looking for extra credit for professor, please just put in the chat your course number and also the professor you're currently looking forward to for that extra credit as well. So I can see a couple ALPFA members actually here present. That's fantastic. Love to see that. And additionally, we'll take attendance for all the ALPFA members that are currently within this meeting and really an event, and just for that effort for our point system that, as you already know, within ALPFA internally. But it is an honor and a pleasure to be the president of this fantastic organization. And I do extend an open invite to the panelists here. If they want to host an employer event in the future, we do have our contact information there in the flyer at UTRGV@gmail.com, where we're always looking for companies to present about their opportunities, their employing opportunities, anything of full-time as well, and also the initiatives that highlight diversity, equity, and inclusion. Being a premier Latino organization of ALPFA, we really push those opportunities in the future. But with that being said, I'm super happy to be here, and I'm super excited for this panelist discussion that each and every one of our members and everyone here will truly experience and gain knowledge into the fantastic opportunities that come in with internship experiences.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Irvin, for sharing all of that. And just to mention to the ALPFA members, if you do check in for the event, you can also select your organization and check in there. So for any of you that are new coming in, please look at the link online. It's a check-in for the event today. We'd really appreciate if you could send in that information. And then now I do want to share that we have a student moderating this event today, and his name is Pete. Pete, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jack. And also thank you, Irvin. That was phenomenal. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pedro Garcia. And I wanted to thank you all for joining us for today's employer internship panel as part of Internship Week. Feel free to call me Pete. That's something that I go by within the College of Engineering, my friends, family, everything like that. UTRGV is my community, my family. So all of you, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or connect with me in any way that you like. And I would love to help you in any way that I can. Just to give you some background about myself, I am actually the president of the Engineering Student Advisory Council, along with president of the Cybersecurity Club and the technical lead at Frontera Dev. So I am deeply invested in not only UTRGV and our community, but also in the College of Engineering. And I will be serving as today's moderator. So I'm representing the College of Engineering and Computer Science on behalf of the Career Center. And I couldn't be more excited to be here and be able to talk to y'all. So please note that we are recording this session today for future reference. So I would ask all of you, if you can, for those that are not panelists, to please turn off your cameras and also to make sure that everyone has their mics muted. I would greatly appreciate that going forward. I will be opening the floor later on in the panel for students to engage in questions for our panelists, and feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation in the chat, and I'll make sure to get to it as soon as possible. I would like to begin by introducing our panelists participating in today's event. So today joining us, we have Samantha Silvas, Corporate Analytics Supervisor with ExxonMobil and alumni of UTPA and UTRGV. ExxonMobil is an American and multinational oil and gas corporation headquartered in Irving, Texas, and is a large partner of the UTRGV Career Center with active engagement and recruiting of UTRGV talent. Welcome, Samantha. We also have, of course, thank you so much. We also have Pedro Reina, analyst with EY and UTRGV alumni. EY, short for Ernst & Young, is one of the largest professional service networks in the world and is considered one of the big four accounting firms in the world. EY is an active partner of UTRGV, continuously joining us on campus and promoting internships and career opportunities. Welcome, Pedro.
Hey, everyone. Happy to be here. Thank you, Pete.
Of course. And lastly, we have Misty Martin, Vice President of Administrative Services for Rhodes Enterprises. Headquartered in McAllen, Texas, Rhodes Enterprises is the largest and fastest growing mixed-use developer of master plan communities in the Rio Grande Valley. Rhodes specializes in both single and multi-family home construction, commercial construction, financial services, and property management. Rhodes is a new employer partner and began their internship program this past summer. Welcome, Misty.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
So going straight into it, we're going to be asking our panelists a bunch of questions. So hopefully they'll be able to answer every single one of them. And I hope you all are excited, just as excited as I am. So as we begin, I'd like to direct my first question to Samantha. Samantha, over the past 135 years of ExxonMobil, it has evolved from a regional marketer of kerosene in the United States to one of the largest publicly traded petroleum and petrochemical enterprises in the world. What interested you in working for ExxonMobil? And can you share with us the culture of the industry you work in?
Yeah, that's a good question. At first, I thought you were going to go really deep into my company history. And I was like, man, Jack didn't prep me to study for this test. But no, some of the things that interested me, I mean, I was in your all shoes years ago now. I felt so old when you guys were showing the slide and it said the year I graduated. I was like, man, I think I'm going to keep that out from now on. But yeah, I mean, I was in your all shoes, right? And looking at companies just like y'all are probably looking at them now and trying to determine what did I want to be when I grew up. And what drove me to the oil industry is it's something we all use every day. And it's everywhere, right? I mean, I don't know if y'all know, but even in like your chewing gum, Hershey's chocolate bars, etc., there's a form of oil that is in them. And so it's all these cool different little things that I've learned over time and kind of interested me in the field. Our culture here, I mean, we're pretty business casual. We have a giant campus in the Houston area that the majority of us sit at, except those of us that sit in the corporate office in Irving that you mentioned. And it's very much, I think, similar to a college campus. We have a gym on site. We have, like a standard type of cafeteria where you can go buy food, coffee bars, Starbucks, a little shop where you could buy small gifts. We even have a froyo place in our building, Chick-fil-A, some of the standard amenities, but that try to make it feel more like you're just having a normal day and then working in the middle, if that makes sense, right? And then of course, yeah, you still have your work desks, workplaces, similar to probably what you guys have at school now. So yeah, I don't know if that kind of captures both questions because it was a double loaded question. But...
Yeah, it was definitely a long question, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess one thing I do want to ask you is that what is your favorite part of working for ExxonMobil?
The people, and actually, I think you brought it up at the start that we are active in recruiting from UTRGV, and it's one of the things that I actively participate in. It's not my full-time job, but it's probably one of my favorite things to do, right? Getting to connect with the students, being on campus, meeting people and interviewing, and then bringing people here and kind of maintaining the relationship with the people that we're able to bring from UTRGV here, and showing that you can do it, just because I think that there's always that stigma, right, from the Valley, like, oh, you're kind of stuck there. I'm from there, went to high school with Jack. I think we even played sports together when we were like, I don't know, like under 10, like I'm from the Valley, and it was a stigma for us too, right? Like you're gonna stay there, and it's not a bad thing if you do, but there are opportunities other places, right? And so I think it's fun to be able to show that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that response.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to emphasize, that there is availability for people that do want to leave the valley to, work wherever they want to pursue their dreams. But it's also not a bad thing to also stay in the valley and work here as well. So thank you. Thank you for your continued support for UTRGV. I really do appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to being there in October.
Of course. Thank you. So our next question is going to be for Pedro. Thank you for joining us today. EY was ranked 52 in Fortune's 100 best companies to work for in 2022, which is amazing. And 83% of employees say it is a great place to work, compared to 50% of employees at a typical US-based company. Based on your experience working with EY, what can you share about the industry? And are there any company norms or opportunities for students that you would like to share?
Yeah, definitely. Focusing on the second part of the question, a lot of opportunities. EY is growing so fast that I knew that when I was, looking for a job, and that's primarily why I wanted to join EY, right? Because I knew that this firm has changed so much over the years, and just the business that they do, which is financial services. As we've seen, right, without veering too much off, we hear about Bitcoin, we hear about new technologies happening, and EY is at the forefront of these changes and with industry leaders. So for me, belonging to a company that is involved in, the ever-changing technology, that is open to different backgrounds. Like Samantha said, there's this preconceived notion, right, of being from the Valley, if not leaving the Valley. But ultimately, companies out there, thanks to alumni older than me and Samantha, for example, have paved the way, to let them know that UTRGV and the Valley do have people that are able of doing world-class work. So for me, having the opportunity to be a part of EY that embraces, the different backgrounds that everyone has, and just being involved in the change happening in the world, to me, that's very exciting, and that's a place that I'd like to be. Do you mind repeating the question? Sorry.
Yeah, no, of course. I know it was a long question. It's like two-parters basically for each one. But EY was ranked 52nd out of 100 for best companies to work for in 2022. And 83% of employees that work for EY say it's an amazing place to work for, comparatively to the 57% that work for other US-based companies. So I just want to pick your brain, get a little bit of insight of why you believe, your coworkers feel that way and why you may feel that way as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'll say that I joined UI during the pandemic, not to get back into that, but joining, a company during that time when there was so much talk about mental health, for example, when all of our lives are so uncertain, right? Belonging to a company that embraces these changes and that has that in their mind when they're hiring someone, I think is very important, right? So when I joined, I was fully remote. Over time, we've gone back to hybrid. But ultimately, throughout this change, going back into the office, for example, they've been there giving us communication as we need and giving us the resources that we also need, not just like financial incentives, but also one thing that really stuck out to me was that we have 25 counseling sessions with mental health professionals every year that we can charge, right? That's one of the many benefits that EY has that recently, has really stood out to me personally. We all get so taken over with our daily activities that you forget about your mental health, right? So like the fact that your employer brings this up and has these resources, I think is very, very important. Aside from that, the benefits that they have as far as PTO and all that stuff, it's really great. It's very flexible. Ultimately, you're working with teams that understand, who you are as a person, and ultimately you come first, right? And UI is aware of that, and I think that's the biggest part that I like about it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Pedro. And I'm really glad that you emphasize and put a spotlight on mental health awareness. I believe a lot of college students, they worry a lot about their physical health, but they don't really take into account their mental health. So when you have an employer that cares about you and your mental health, I think that's a really good thing to emphasize and to kind of spotlight and show to people that are prospectively looking into working for EY. So thank you for that, Pedro. I really appreciate it. So our next question is going to be for Misty. So Rhodes Enterprises was established in 1997 and started as a small family business. As of today, Rhodes has grown tremendously and recently pushed out their first summer internship program, to which you hired many UTRGV students of different backgrounds. What information can you share about your internship program?
Sure. Thanks for this opportunity. Yeah, so we one of our core values at Rhodes is community leadership, and our purpose has always been centered on building communities, and that involves not only building homes for individuals, but giving back and being active in that. And so the internship program, which is a natural kind of play into that core value and like living into that value, but also living into really what we believe in when it comes to talent management, which is growing people from the inside and giving people opportunities to grow in their careers. And so in the internship program, it's an 8-week program. We had our first inaugural session this past summer that you mentioned, but we take applications from folks here at UTRGV and other universities across the state. This year, we had 13 individuals join the program over the 8 weeks, and it was just a wonderful experience on both sides. I think our interns really took away some good learnings and skill sets that they'll be able to apply to their futures. And through that 8-week process, it was the whole energy of our company kind of shifted. It was great having everybody there. So it was a really great experience, and so we're excited to continue that in the years ahead.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And, congratulations on your first internship program. And as a continuation of that, just to give some insight, it's a 2-part question. So what majors are you specifically looking for your internship program?
Yep. So we look at all majors. Roads, as you mentioned, we are a land developer. The main focus of our operations is residential home building. So the construction science program is a big pull for us, but we operate our business like any other company. So we have all of the back office functions of accounting, marketing, my department, which oversees talent management and risk management. So any accounting, finance, we basically, I don't think there's any major that wouldn't apply to one role that we've got within the company. And something I just wanted to share about Roads, we are a local company, and so comparatively to Exxon and Ernst & Young, obviously we don't have the brand awareness that comes with those entities, but we are very fast growing. We actually ranked on the Inc. 5000 list this year as one of America's fastest growing companies in the United States. So that in and of itself, just coming from being a local company here that started here, I think is just a wonderful opportunity for folks to come in and really get a front seat to what is ahead. And our growth trajectory and where that we're targeting it is going to take us into to statewide expansion. So it's really just a great opportunity to kind of see how a company operates at this stage of its existence.
Yeah, of course. And that's amazing. Thank you. And the second part that I wanted to ask you is that from your perspective, what was or what is one of the coolest parts of being part of an intern for Roads?
So I wish we could have some of our interns that we had on the call today. There's actually, I would point you all to our website. We've got a wonderful video. Honestly, when we designed our internship program, we designed it based on experience. And this is also how we think about people in our organization as well. So we wanted to make sure that our interns had an experience of not only learning the skill sets, but also feeling like a regular team member that's contributing to the everyday success of the company. And that is what I heard from the interns was the biggest takeaways. They felt like they were able to really quickly ramp up to be able to actively contribute and see what it feels like to actually play the role of a land development project manager or marketing coordinator. So we gave real life projects and real life scopes of work. And I feel like that's really important. And some of the advice I would give to folks when you're looking at an internship opportunity is making sure you're matching your selection with what it is you want to be doing when you graduate, because it's pretty much like a tryout. You get to see not only the company aspects of how the company operates, but also what it is that you are going to be doing in the day-to-day to kind of better inform your decisions in the long term.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Misty. I really appreciate it. So our next question is going to be for Samantha. So for students pursuing their bachelor's, master's, or PhD, and they want to explore, opportunities in their disciplines of interest, can you share with us the type of positions Exxon hires for and what majors can apply?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Somebody asked a similar one in the chat. Right now at UTRGV, we are targeting engineers and folks for IT work at ExxonMobil, right? So our engineering side typically will focus more on like the manufacturing program there, but we're open, right? And then for the computer side, we're going to be looking at computer science, MIS, computer engineering, electrical engineering, those types of programs. That said, we do obviously similar to what Misty said, right? We employ every type of position here. So I wouldn't discourage anybody from reaching out or looking online at some of our open requisitions, or even coming up to our booth at the career fair when we're there in a couple weeks to ask us locally, right? And I know for sure Ronnie, I don't remember his last name, but Jack's colleague, right, has shared out the open requisitions that we have right now that we're using for the UTRGV. I actually, after this at 1:30, have a meeting with my recruiting team to review resumes that have already been submitted from UTRGV to start scheduling interviews. So when I say we're actively recruiting, we are actively recruiting and looking at specifically engineering and computer science majors.
Okay, perfect. And I guess just as a continuation of that as well, ExxonMobil, do they hire on a rolling basis or is it more so for just the fulfillment of roles?
So that's one of the interesting things about ExxonMobil. One of the reasons also why I picked to work here, but I didn't mention it earlier because there's a lot of different little factors you kind of look at, right? But we don't hire people for a specific position. We hire people based on their skill set and their ability to learn and for a career. So I've worked for Exxon since I graduated in 2009. And during that time, I've had a wide range of positions from, an analyst type job to supervisor roles to advisor type roles. I want to say, I've lost count, but over 10 different jobs in the 13 years that I've worked here. Most recently lived in Midland, Texas at one of our field sites where we have the Permian Basin, which some of you might be aware of just through local news, right? It's one of our highest producing oil areas in the United States. And so, I had an opportunity to live there for a few years, and now I'm back in Houston doing data and analytics, which I've never done before. But it's an opportunity for me to learn. And again, one of the reasons why I've really, really enjoy working here, because like a normal person, right? We get kind of bored of doing the same thing every day. But with Exxon, I've had opportunities to change what I'm doing every day and learn something different.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that info.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So the next question is going to be for Pedro. As an alumni of UTRGV, can you share what your experience was like as a student? Did you actively pursue internships while you were here? And then following that, how did your experiences lead you to obtain a career in the industry you are in right now?
Yeah, for sure. So I can say thanks to people like Jack and Ronnie, that were around when I was at UTRGV. I was very involved within the College of Business with SHRM. I did partake in 2 internships, one with the UT system. And yeah, my experience with UTRGV was very positive, because to me, being a part of a university that's so early on in its history, there's so many resources that aren't even there. It was so new, it was so novel to me to be a part of it, right? So I was very involved. Part of my internship experience really allowed me to see, what's it like working for a small business, what's it like working for a medium-sized business, and ultimately for a bigger organization, right? That did allow me to pinpoint some of my own strengths, but mostly some of my own weaknesses, right? As you go through these experiences, as you meet people, I would always take a step back, and I encourage everyone to take a step back and just reflect on any feedback that you get, or any actual anything you produce, reflect on that, right? And there's always room for improvement. And for me, learning this and going through this very early on just really allowed me to feel very supported when I got to my job that I'm currently in, and I had sort of been through it already. So yeah, that was my experience with UTRGV.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Our next question is going to be for Misty. Rhodes has a pretty rigorous selection process when recruiting students for internships. To ensure you have the highest performing team of staff, what expectations do you have of interns, and what should they know before applying?
Got it. Yep. So we do have a rigorous process, as you mentioned. I'm going to kind of shift this to more of advice giving, if you will, and then I'll talk more on the process at the back end. So essentially, the first thing we do is screen the applicants, right? We had over 200 applications for 13 spots on our in our cohort this year. And so to weed out the 200, we just looked at resumes right away and applications. So my first piece of advice is to make sure that you've got a really strong resume that speaks to the skill sets that you've acquired either through direct on-the-job experience or through your studies. And also make sure that you're casting yourself in a way that shows all the diversity about yourself, not only your skill sets and what you can bring to the table, but who you are as a person. Because one of the things that we look at specifically and foremost, even before skill set, is how like how active are you going to be in actually participating in our community and in our culture, and not just coming in, doing your job and going home. So making sure that your resume kind of shares all that. If you're involved in student organizations, put that on there. If you volunteer at your church, put that on there. Like really try to put everything that you can in a very succinct way in your resume, because that's the first impression that we receive as recruiters, is looking through that resume. And then once we get past that, things that I'm looking at and judging is the responsiveness of a person. So if I reach out to somebody, I want to see if they're going to be responsive to me. I pay attention to how they form their communication back to me. If they're being, just the way they choose their words, I'm looking at that aspect of a person's interaction. And then in the video interviews that we conduct, so we do video interviews. It really is just about how prepared the person is about our company, what they know about us, what they can, how they present themselves, and speak around their experiences. So I think it's just important to prepare yourself for each one of those segments. And then based on that, it really, if I feel like a person is coachable, energetic, and is going to actively contribute to the organization positively, that in and of itself is going to be like a hand up and being selected for the cohort.
Okay, awesome, perfect. And I guess this ties into, for all three of you, something that I've noticed, and one thing that I feel like hasn't necessarily been demystified, is that there needs to be a good balance between technical and soft skills. And this is an open question to all three of you. What is your view on that? And how do you feel like you bridge the gap between those three? So we can start with Misty, since I just finished your question with you. And then the rest, if you'd like to, give your own input, feel free to do so.
Yeah. So, I agree. I think it's really important to have, you need to have both, obviously. Obviously you've got to have the skill set to do the job at a basic foundational level. That's number one. But I think what's arguably more important is the soft skills stuff. Is if you're coachable and you've got the high will and drive to learn and to succeed, you're going to be successful. And you can get where you need to be on the skill set side. So I would say it's important to have awareness and to have a certain level of skill set that is married to or matches the role that you're looking to get hired for. But you need to honestly, I would overplay the soft skills, because that is not going to show up on paper, and that comes through your interactions. And I personally, in my team, I hire for soft skills. I keep people on my team based on their soft skills. And if somebody's not a fit for the role, then I put them in a role that I think that they are a fit in, because you can't teach those soft skills, unfortunately.
Okay, perfect answer. And Samantha and Pedro, if you would like to chime in, feel free to do so.
Yeah, for sure. If I can piggyback on that. As you mentioned a bit earlier, right, for anyone that's coming close to graduating, and it is a big, achievement, but the race isn't over there, right? Once you get your job, you still got to keep pushing. You still got to keep excelling, right? So yeah, in my experience with UI right now, I've seen that, right? Ultimately, the people that are moving on to becoming leads, that are becoming managers, isn't necessarily because they have more technical know-how or knowledge necessarily, but because they have the skills, soft skills to lead, right? They're empathetic, they know how to approach people and things like that. So yeah, there has to be a balance. But once you're in the organization, like Misty said, those soft skills need to be highlighted in everything that you do, because ultimately, the organization knows you can do your job, but setting yourself apart by how you treat others, how empathetic you are, how aware you are, that's the biggest thing, being conscious of not only yourself, but others around you. That is what's going to put you in a better position to be promoted, to move forward in life in general, but particularly, to be able to find the job and go from there. So there is a balance, but like Misty said, do find those soft skills first as a foundation and just go from there.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I think they both covered it well, but I'll add, right? I think Misty was the one that made the point, but we know what classes you're taking. We can see your grades, we can see your transcripts, right? But we cannot see the other side, the soft skills. And so it's important that you focus on that, especially when introducing yourself, interviewing, etc., right? And try to make sure that part of you stands out as well.
All right, perfect. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear all of that, just because, I know from a computer engineering student standpoint, a lot of us put so much emphasis on the technical that we forget about the soft skill, and we forget how important it is to convey information to those that may not understand what we're talking about or don't have the same background or education. So it's good to have that knowledge, knowing that it's a consensus, within industry, that people need to have those soft skills and they also need to have those technical skills. So thank you all three. I really do appreciate it. So the next question, this is directed towards Pedro. We have some students joining us who are currently participating in internships. What should you know or be doing in order to maximize their internship experience?
Good question. Definitely building relationships that aren't just going to be the lapse of the internship, but looking ahead, right? So ultimately, really, obviously, you got to ask questions, you got to be an open mind, be coachable, take risks. But ultimately, once that internship ends, not only are you taking everything you learned, but those relationships, right? So like you said, sometimes we get so focused on our technical know-how, on, diving into the books, that you might forget about those around you. So I think my advice is for anyone currently as an intern, or anyone that might be an intern, focus, on meeting your team members, building relationships with them, being able to, send a message to them later in a few years and just follow up, right? I think that's my biggest advice, that you really foster relationships with those that you meet.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then Samantha as well, if you have input on that, based on your own experience, what is something that you would like for individuals to take away from their internship experience?
I mean, the same, right? Don't burn bridges. You're gonna end up working with anybody from any of those, the communities again later. Even if I, for example, didn't go work for EY, right? I'll probably work with them in a consulting capacity one day and maybe talk to Pedro. And if I make a bad comment to Pedro, he's gonna be like, I don't want to work with Samantha now, or something along those lines, right? And so it's again back to the soft skill side of that's the focus of when you come here. Yeah, you'll have a project and you'll be a real member of the team. I think Misty made that comment earlier, right? During those 8 weeks, but the other piece of those 8 weeks are going to be more how you grow as a person and as an adult, as a corporate, right, a worker. And so don't forget that piece of it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you both. My next question is geared towards Misty. We know the process for your internship application does not stop after a student applies. What advice or tips can you give to our students after they have successfully submitted their application?
I think it's always great to over communicate and, just send it. If you haven't, we've got a lot of resources on our career website. So reaching out to a recruiter, kind of forming that relationship and connecting with people on a one-to-one basis, I think is really helpful. We do open our window for applications early. And so there is a bit of a dead period there. I'm not going to, shadow that with a different reality than what it is. So once you apply, I will tell you, we did have a few folks that reached out afterwards, and they were just super, super eager. We could feel it just from their interactions and how often they were following up to really want to intern with us in particular. And that says a lot about just the match around the opportunity. So just staying in connection, I think, is important. And then I think what I shared earlier in my previous response kind of speaks also to that question. The one thing I was going to piggyback on the question you asked the other panelists a moment ago is, I think if you think about your internship, I say 100% amen to what Pedro shared around relationship building, but also like think about it as like a network, right? Like you might not work at Rhodes for, after your internship, but there's guaranteed going to be people in the organization who might have connections to places where you do want to be working, or with people who can help you bridge that that step to get to where you're trying to go. So take the opportunity to know people, to understand how they can help you in like a network capacity, and then continuing to keep those alive and well, I think can really lend itself to some favorable outcomes for folks in their future.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect advice. I mean, networking is one, if not one of the biggest aspects of, internship experience. A lot of people, they get very excited about it. They go into an internship thinking that they're just gonna, in my case, be an engineer, a software engineer, and just focus on the technical. But a lot of it comes down to the people that you meet and the relationships that you foster. And, in the future, that can lead you to your dream job. So I do agree on that aspect. So thank you so much. So the next one, this is going to be for all panelists. And we can start with Pedro. So what general characteristics or traits do you focus on when considering a potential applicant? Do you look at skills, education, work experience, or all of the above? And, I know we touched on this a little bit, but just to, go into depth, just what do you specifically look at, and what do you feel like your coworkers look into? What do they see when they see a resume, or the fresh, nervous face on the other side of the screen? What is something that, comes to mind when you think of characteristics?
For sure. And I will say I'm not directly involved with the hiring process or seeing the resumes, but the engagement that I'm currently on, it's a very big engagement with close to 300 people. So I do see people from different backgrounds, different walks of life. I'd say ultimately it comes down to, your resume is going to be, we know how to do it already, right? You have the Career Center where they'll tell you how to make your resume, what to include and whatnot. Ultimately, you have to be a good communicator. You have to be open to collaboration, open to feedback. And to me, I feel that, and a sense of urgency, at least with EY, right? I could only speak for EY, and most people that I've met have those characteristics, right? Where ultimately EY wants you to be who you are and highlight, your own personal attributes, while, using your education, your experience as leverage. Without going into too much detail of how, working for EY works, but when you join, the ranking system doesn't change a whole lot. You join as an associate analyst, for example, and you're not necessarily attached to one job. You're staffed on a project, and ultimately you're going to be trained to the needs of that project, right? Based on your education or your experience. But EY is going to give you the tools that you need to be up to par and excel for that particular project. So knowing that, I feel should help all of us mold ourselves to be a candidate that can fall into that system. Someone that is okay with change, someone that is able to adapt, someone that is open to new ideas, right? Things along those lines is ultimately what a company like EY in this case is looking for. At the end of the day, everyone you work with is going to be really, really smart. So ultimately tying in your soft skills with what the company is looking for is going to be the biggest differentiator for any candidates. I will say when you apply to EY, you don't apply to one job necessarily. You apply as a candidate, and then you're staffed, like I said. So yeah, definitely know that EY will train you to be up who you have to be for the role, but highlight who you are as a person, right? They want someone that is true to themselves, that has the values, that has integrity, and that is shown through the resume. If I can add a bit, many times, our resume is so thought through that we spend a little too much time on a resume, right? And what I'll say is, right, we all have a resume that's going to be like that. Take a step back and begin formulating a narrative or a storyline of your life in a way, right? Professionally and educationally, and repeat that story in your mind a few times to where you know it in and out. And when you are in front of a recruiter, you're able to rerun that story and almost like muscle memory highlight attributes, skills, strengths, weaknesses, up and downs through your career this far, and very quickly, have that in mind. So, closing statement, I guess, is be adaptable, be a good communicator. I'm not a good communicator, but I try to work on it. I put myself in positions where I have to speak publicly to get over, any barriers we might have. So ultimately, being adaptable, being a learner, going for it is what EY is looking for. I'd say that.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you for that response. And Samantha and Misty, if you would like to chime in, feel free to do so.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I'm an active recruiter, so I do look at the resumes and I do interview for Exxon. And I'm going to go more like by the book here, but we use the STAR method when interviewing. And if you guys aren't aware of it yet, I encourage you to look for it before we're on campus interviewing next week. It's a method a lot of recruiters and companies use while interviewing, but essentially, right, what we're looking for to Pedro's kind of comment of building that story, right? It's how you're answering the question with your situation, your task, how you reacted to it, and the result that came from it is what STAR stands for. But when we are interviewing, we're actively looking at your soft skills, see how this all kind of ties together. And we're kind of dissecting those through the STAR method of interviewing.
Okay, awesome. Yes. And STAR method is something that I would say from experience has helped me with getting internships. So for those of you that don't know about it, please do look up and brush up on STAR method. It really does help. And I greatly agree with you on that point. So thank you so much, Samantha.
Of course.
And Misty.
So, this might seem like redundant and repetitive, but I think what's important is that you're able to, I know everyone's like nervous coming into an interview, right? Like you're researching, it's like, oh, there's so much high stakes conversation, but to the extent that you can just kind of be yourself. We're all human. We all have, our own journeys and kind of what we bring to the table. And so just trying to be as bringing your whole self to the conversation and just being as relaxed as you can be, I think really helps. Relationships are everything. And so I think just kind of framing your mindset around, okay, this is just another conversation. It's not a test, it's just a conversation. And ultimately what I think through as I'm recruiting people is that you're choosing the company as much as the company is choosing you. So this is not just a one-way street where you're being judged. You are judging, and you should be judging the company as well. So use that in your and how you're framing and kind of preparing for the conversation. But what I look for specifically is people that have a growth mindset, people that show that they are able to receive and be comfortable receiving feedback, because we are a fast-growing organization. Sometimes we're in situations where we're like building the plane while we're flying it. And so being able to get feedback and not take it personally and sit in it for too long before being able to just like turn it around and move forward is something that's super important. And so those things I look for, and you can usually see that even with people that don't have a ton of work history or experience, you can see that through different interactions they've had through their life. As Pedro was mentioning, tell your story not only from like your work experiences, but also your personal experiences and where you've been.
Yeah, that's a perfect response. That's something that I tell a lot of individuals as well. Be your genuine self. You need to make sure that it's not just about selling yourself. It's about also enjoying the process and enjoying the company that you're trying to join. So it's not just about pitching yourself and selling yourself, it's about truly being yourself, because you can't always have a facade, working, whether it's an internship or full-time. So I greatly agree with that. And thank you for that. I appreciate it.
One other thing I will say, for those of us who may or may not have this, I do highly believe in modeling conversations and practicing conversations. So before you go into an interview, I would find like the person, your best friend, your spouse, whoever, somebody that you can do a mock interview with, just to kind of get some of those nerves out of the way and get some feedback. My husband recently applied for promotion in his company that he was slotted to get, but we went through, I can tell you, like 3 hours of like mock interviews together, he and I, and it was just like, okay, don't say this, like this came across like that, so just practicing also makes perfect.
Awesome. Perfect.
If I could make a quick comment, I
course.
wouldn't say it's completely off tangent, but when it comes to internships, right, you guys are still in school. I know the way we work, the way the world works is changing. We have a shift to remote, now back to hybrid, some back to office. There is a lot of appeal to working remote, having a remote job, having a remote internship. I've had a few, but ultimately, what I realized recently as a young professional is that we need that in-person experience ultimately, to develop these skills we speak of. They're not going to develop, unfortunately, through remote experiences. So as you look, for your internships, and I know we all probably want to be at home while we do our job, but really step out of your comfort zone and go for those in-person experiences, because that's how you're going to really build relationships. You're going to really become a squared professional, right? Given that you're dealing with other professionals that are more seasoned. And then in a couple of years, once you have a few years under your belt, then you can go remote and you won't be missing out on much, right? Because you already know what it's like being in the office, what it's like meeting others in person and really reading the room. I feel like that's big, a big thing. So.
Thank you. I really appreciate that as well. That's great input.
I have a shameless plug really quick because it's been mentioned. And now that we're on recruiting and preparation, we are going to be hosting another event today, but it's in person for those of you that are here on campus. We have a hook, pitch, and score presentation. Hook being for resume building, resume strength, pitch for your elevator pitch, and score because we're providing methods on acing the interview, which we're going to be discussing the STAR method. So what Samantha was sharing, Pedro and Misty, all about practicing your interview, building your resume. You have an opportunity to do that today through roundtable discussions. So just wanted to plug that in really quick. But carry on, Pete. You're doing a fantastic job.
So thank you everyone for the questions so far. Thank you for answering them genuinely and diligently. So now I'm going to open up the panel for students. So this is the time where you get to ask any type of question you like, whether it's to an individual, to all the panelists. Feel free to ask any questions. Obviously, type it in the chat. We can't have everyone with their mics open. But feel free to, ask some questions. I will be going through the chat real quick, going up to see if I missed anything.
There is one.
Okay.
I think it's addressed to Misty. And Misty, the question is, do you offer internships for civil engineer majors?
We do. Actually, we had a couple students that were civil engineer majors in our internship cohort this past summer. I will say we outsource all of our engineering work right now. We do a lot of work with Meldon and Hunt locally, but the outcome of that work we put to use. And so there's definitely value in the experience with it not, with it still not being an actual role that you might apply everything from that major into, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Misty.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give it a few minutes, but in the meantime, while I'm waiting for people to type their questions, I do have a question for all of you. We did emphasize and talked a lot about the do's of internships, talking about what people should be doing, but we didn't talk about the don'ts. So in y'all's experience, what is something that you want to emphasize that any applicant, whether it's for internship or full-time, what is something that you would say, don't do that? And I'll start with Misty.
I'm I mean, some of this is going to be really basic, right? But like, I mean,
Yeah.
don't come to a meeting looking all frazzled and, you know, gosh, I'm trying to think from experience of things recently that I thought, oh goodness, why did we do that?
If anything, I can come back to you.
Yeah, come back to me.
Yeah,
Come back to me.
of
Let me
course.
think about this.
Samantha, do you have any specific things that you would want to emphasize on?
I mean, it's funny because like Misty said, right, it's almost like it's kind of the common sense things that
Mhm.
that you would almost think about. Like, I mean, yeah, don't come in wearing flip-flops and shorts or something to the office. I mean, maybe to your interview if that's what you're into, like that's probably okay. But yeah, that's hard, man. I don't know. The don'ts are harder because to your point of we really want people to be their true selves, right? You don't want people to act a special way and to fit in and then realize a few years later after a longer investment of time and resources that they don't fit in. So don't not be yourself, I guess. I don't really know a good answer for that.
Yeah,
I
no,
can
that-
add some additional context. Like, I developed that question, so I have to add to it, right? Let's think about like what they should not be doing before the internship, right? So if they were applying for the internship, what should they not be doing?
Like,
Does that help? I don't know if that helps in context. I don't know, but
I
right,
mean,
that is a hard question.
well, I guess it's just because all the things that come to our mind, or at least my mind, and I think Misty made the same comment, so probably hers too, are like very common sense things. But I mean, you want to be taking classes that you should be taking. I don't know. Like, that's weird. It's hard.
I think maybe like to answer this in a way, like it's not gonna be like a don't do this, but maybe do this so that you don't make a mistake. Is, I mean, researching the company ahead of time, right? So if you're
Yes,
interviewing
that's a good one.
with EY versus interviewing with Rhodes, like it might look very differently versus a Google. You know, like you need to do some research on the company so that you know how to bring yourself, how to bring your authentic self to the table. And then also too, I mean, one thing that I've seen applicants do that I don't think is ill-intended, but it's I think sometimes can like leave a bad taste in people's mouth. Like obviously we all take opportunities for compensation, but like that shouldn't be like your leading question. Like I want to know what this position pays, because then I'm thinking like you just want to come here for a paycheck, and I don't want to hire people that are just coming here for a paycheck. Like I want you to contribute and like see like growth, right? So if that question is very valid and should come up in part of the conversation if it's not stated blankly on the job posting, but I wouldn't lead with the questions around like basically like what am I going to get out of this, if that makes sense.
Wait, perfect.
That's a good response to that. I like that. We do have some other questions that are popping in now that we got some traction going here. And I know we have limited time, but for those that want to stick around, we'll address these final questions. How far in advance, I'm going to open this up to all panelists, but how far in advance should I look to apply for an internship? Considering like super busy schedules, is there more interest in the summer, fall, spring? What are your thoughts for students?
Hey, I replied to that in the chat, and I'm gonna try to address it real quick because I do gotta run
Okay.
at 1:30. But while we're on campus for this fall career fair, we're actually going to be filling internship positions for summer of 2023. So definitely check it out. And then we also really appreciate when we see people that are freshmen and sophomores that are looking that maybe feel like they aren't as qualified, but those types of candidates might fit in, right? It just depends on what you're looking for and what you want to be doing. And then as far as those that are graduating, we'll be filling the positions for really January 2023, right? So it's kind of a double-loaded question.
Yeah, I'll answer to that because I see it from a variety of different companies that we work with. So I mean, you consider the organization in large, right? You know, multinational company, national company, they're recruiting all over the nation. You know, it's just not the Valley. They're not even just looking in the state of Texas, right? So it's more competition. With that, students should be applying 3 to 6 months, maybe even further. We have positions that are being posted now in this fall for summer 2023. So that will be dependent on the organization. But then you find maybe more of your local regional partners, companies that are looking to recruit, and it's maybe much smaller. I mean, I will say Rhodes, 13 interns, that's pretty large. But you know, they may be promoting 3 months in advance or maybe 6 months at most, right? So it's always important to, when you're reading the job description, look for that information. If you don't find that information, we will be able to support you with that, making contact with that recruiter, or if you're attending the Career Expo, to ask those questions, right? But we don't have a direct answer on that because it's different for every type of opportunity. But the norm, 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, that's awesome feedback and time frame. I would also say too, if you don't know, ask and like go straight to the source. One of the interns that we had join us was from A&M College Station. He was coming back home from his studies, and he knew that he wanted to do this internship with us. He didn't even know if it was an option, but we were just so happened to be having our program kick off this past year, and he literally emailed us every single month, just making sure that I haven't missed anything. And like his interest really just like, I mean, it shines through. So getting with the recruiter, making that connection and figuring out when they're opening the application, I think will set you ahead. For us, we opened the application in February. We hired for just the summer. So right now we're only doing summer programs. So that's when we open the application, is in February.
Thank you, Misty. And Pedro, while we have you here, I mean, Ernst & Young being or EY, I should say, EY, being as large of an organization that it is, I mean, you all hire well in advance, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of forecasting taking place right now for incoming business. I know our service delivery center in San Antonio is growing very fast, right? This is an office where we have centralized managed services for various clients, and they're growing very, very fast. So yeah, it's definitely an ongoing recruitment cycle, but I will say it's a bit, graduating December, graduating in May. So keep an eye out for those.
Awesome. Thank you, Pedro. Well, I think that's all the time we have today. We're 2 minutes over. Just a few things before everybody leaves. First off, I do want to thank all our participating panelists. I know Samantha had to step out, but Pedro, Misty, thank you so much for your contribution and involvement in today's event. If we can give like a digital round of applause, can we get that? Some little claps in here if we can see some claps, right? So thank you to all of you. And I would also like to thank our co-host, ALPFA, for being here with us. Irvin, thank you so much for your contribution as well as your team members. I saw many of them that were joining us, so fantastic. And I have to also thank our partner, the College of Engineering and Computer Science. But most of all, I need to thank Pete Garcia for serving as our moderator. And he did an amazing job articulating today's event. So great job, Pete. May have to have you come and do this on the regular. So I'll be connecting back with you. But before everyone leaves, I just want to remind everyone to check in for the event today if you have not done so. In addition to that, again, the plug, we have another event happening at 2:30 at the Edinburgh Ballroom and in Brownsville at the B Main Salon Casia. So check on social media, check our website for more details on that. I hope to see you there. And thank you all and have a great day. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you all. Pete, you want to stay on with me real quick?
Yeah, I'll stay on.
Okay. And the recording. I can find it.